So the job I have been assigned is to, tell you the evidence for the association between non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and various, non-communicable diseases. I think you recently, you just heard Professor Sareen saying that NAFLD or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease now has become a multi-system disease. And there are lots of extrahepatic diseases which are very closely associated with NAFLD. And if you look at this figure here, I think the all extrahepatic diseases are like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, chronic kidney disease, obstructive sleep apneas, malignancies. So many of these are what we call them as non-communicable diseases. So what I will do is in this next 15-20 minutes is to give you the evidence about the relationship between NAFLD and some of these non-communicable diseases, and I'll be focusing predominantly on the relationship of NAFLD with obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia combined together, what we call them as metabolic syndrome. And also, I'll be telling you some evidence about the relationship between NAFLD and the cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, and some of the malignancies. So let me start with the relationship between the NAFLD and the metabolic syndrome first. We all understand that they're very closely associated to the extent that NAFLD is now considered as a hepatic component of a metabolic syndrome. But what we need to understand is that this link between the fatty liver disease, NAFLD, and metabolic syndrome is bidirectional. When I say bidirectional, it means that metabolic syndrome increases the risk of NAFLD, which means if the patient has metabolic syndrome or any of its components, which I said obesity, diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, that person would be at a higher risk of developing NAFLD. But on the other hand, if somebody starts with fatty liver disease and no metabolic components, which means no diabetes, no hypertension, nothing, NAFLD or fatty liver per se puts that patient at a higher risk of developing metabolic syndrome or its components on long-term basis. Again, I'll show you some data on that. The third thing which I would like to show you is that if you have two patients with fatty liver disease and one person has metabolic risk factors or metabolic syndrome versus the other who doesn't have metabolic risk factors, the chances of having severe liver disease, severe liver disease in NAFLD we call it, means the chances of having NASH, which is a severe form of NAFLD, and advanced fibrosis are much more in people those who would have metabolic risk factors or metabolic syndrome in comparison to patients those who do not have. So indirectly saying that metabolic risk factors or metabolic syndrome increases the severity of fatty liver disease. Lastly, as I said, I'll show you some evidence about the association of NAFLD with cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease and some of the malignancies. And these, this risk may be dependent on metabolic risk factors, and this could be happening independent of metabolic risk factors. So let me first start with the association with what is the evidence that the NAFLD is associated with metabolic syndrome. So for this, I have picked up just two studies. One is this, the study from Netherlands, so-called the Rotterdam study, and large number of participants, around 3,000. One third of them, around 35% of them having fatty liver disease. And when they looked at the risk factors, they found that the NAFLD was very closely associated with all these metabolic risk factors. And if you look at the risk of developing fatty liver disease with these risk factors, the highest was with the central obesity, or which is usually measured as waist circumference, so around 5 times risk. So if somebody is centrally obese, he would be at a 5 times higher risk of developing fatty liver disease in comparison to the one who is not centrally obese. Somebody who's a diabetic or even has fasting glucose say more than 100 is twice the risk of developing fatty liver disease. Same is true for hypertension, and same is true for say hypertriglyceridemia. So I think this study had very well, shown, and there are large number of other studies. Because of paucity of time, I cannot show you all the data, but what I'll show you is only one Indian data, and that's our own study, where we had, looked at around 1,000 blood donors at Chandigarh PGI, and 53% of them had fatty liver disease. And when we looked at again the predictors of having fatty liver disease, they were nothing but all these metabolic risk factors. May it be overall obesity, which is determined by BMI, central obesity, which was determined by waist circumference, hypertension, dyslipidemia, and metabolic syndrome. They were all independent predictors of NAFLD. Now coming to the second point, high prevalence of NAFLD in patients with metabolic syndrome. So which means that if you have metabolic syndrome, or if you have components of metabolic syndrome, are the chances of having fatty liver disease more than the general population? The answer is yes. Again, I think because of want of time, I have just picked up this very recent meta-analysis by Professor Zobair Younusi's group, which had taken 80 studies from 20 countries and around 50,000 patients with type 2 diabetes. And if you look at this, the prevalence of fatty liver disease was close to 56%. And we know that the worldwide, and there was a meta-analysis which was done again by Professor Zobair Younusi a few years back, and where they gave the global prevalence of fatty liver disease in general population to be 25%. But it is variable, as I said, but in diabetics, they showed it is 56%. So if you have metabolic risk factors, diabetes, obesity, and this risk of having fatty liver disease would keep increasing as the number of components of metabolic syndrome will keep going up. I'll show you some data on that. But before that, again, I'd like to show you one Indian data. This is down south from Chennai, Professor V. Mohan's group. And there again, they looked at around 500 subjects, and around again 1/3 of them had fatty liver disease. And when they looked at the prevalence of fatty liver disease between those who had diabetes versus those who did not, the patients with diabetes had 55% prevalence of NAFLD in comparison to 22% in those with normal glucose tolerance. Again, thereby suggesting that if you have diabetes, if you have hypertension, if you have metabolic risk factors, your risk of having fatty liver disease actually goes up. This is the another study which is gives you a concept that suppose you have metabolic risk factors, say diabetes, hypertension, or whatever, and you look for fatty liver disease and there is no fatty liver disease. So what happens to these patients over a period of time? So this is, I think, a large cohort of around 15,000 patients without NAFLD at baseline. They followed them up, and around 1/3 of them developed new cases of fatty liver disease. And when they looked at that, what is the risk involved of developing fatty liver disease because of these metabolic risk factors, as I said, as the components of metabolic syndrome increased, your hazard ratio of developing fatty liver disease went up. So if one metabolic risk factor, 2 times the risk. Two metabolic risk factors, maybe 3 times the risk. And if 3 metabolic risk factors, maybe 4 times the risk. So I think your risk of having fatty liver disease over a period of time, keeps increasing as the number of metabolic, risk factors, they keep increasing. Now, coming to the other aspect, what is the prevalence of metabolic syndrome in patients with fatty liver disease? Here, we had taken earlier, patients with metabolic syndrome, and we were trying to look at fatty liver disease in them. Now, as hepatologists or as general physicians in our liver clinic or in your medicine clinic, I mean, you would be seeing large number of patients with fatty liver disease or with incidental rise in transaminases, and when you work them up, they turn out to be having fatty liver disease. Now, when you look at metabolic risk factors in them, what is the prevalence of having metabolic syndrome and metabolic risk factors in them? So again, because of want of time, I'm showing you this one of the largest data from our country, which is again our consortium data. We call it as Indian Consortium on Non-Alcoholic Fatty Liver Disease, ICON-D. This is an ongoing study with 40 centers across the country, which we are doing the real life data collection electronically around 40 centers. And last year in 2020, June, when we finished 1.5 years of this, we did this interim analysis and of around 4,000 patients. And if you look at this, the idea of showing you is that, but for around 10-11% of patients, those who are so-called normal BMI, and we call them as lean NAFLD, rest all had either overweight or obesity. Obesity in around 73% and overweight in around 16%. To combine together, around 89% of them would have overweight or obesity. So it's only a 10-11% of the patients, at least in our experience, who would be so-called lean NAFLD. When you look at the various, other metabolic risk factors or the components of metabolic syndrome, and then at least one risk factor or metabolic risk factor was present in 93% of these patients. And the most common metabolic risk factor was central obesity, which was measured by, again, by the waist circumference, which was present in 83%. And when we looked at the overall metabolic syndrome, and the metabolic syndrome normally we look at by what we call the ATP3 criteria or the adult treatment panel 3 criteria. There are various other ways of looking at metabolic syndrome, and if you have 3 or more than 3 components of these ATP3 criteria, which are total of 5, I think you call them as metabolic syndrome. So that was present in 43%, these patients. And if you look at the individual components, as I said, the central obesity in 83%, hypertriglyceridemia in 1/3, type 2 diabetes in say 20%, and low HDL in around 50%. Now, coming to the other aspect, which I said that suppose you have a patient with fatty liver disease today, and as I said, everybody, when they come to you in the liver clinic or in the medicine clinic, will not have metabolic risk factors, will not have metabolic syndrome. But then, over a period of time, what happens to them? Do they tend to develop metabolic risk factors? And this is what the bidirectional link I was trying to tell you. Yes, it does happen. And again, I'll show you some data. And this is one of the most quoted study, which had a follow-up around 13 years, around 130 patients, all with NAFLD with elevated liver enzymes and biopsy proven NASH. And when they followed up these patients, I think, look at this. At the baseline, only around 8-9% of these patients had so-called diabetes. But after a mean follow-up of 13 years, and after 13 years, they had 88 patients who were still on their follow-up. 69 of these 88, which is 78%, close to 80%, either had diabetes or impaired fasting glucose, which again indirectly telling us that over a period of time, even if you don't have diabetes or metabolic risk factors, over a period of time, fatty liver per se puts you at a risk of developing diabetes and various other metabolic risk factors. And I think, again, the time doesn't permit me to get into all those studies, but this is tabulated studies which actually shows us that yes, if you have NAFLD to begin with, over a period of time, your risk of developing incident diabetes actually goes up. And that is true not only for diabetes, all other metabolic risk factors, may it be dyslipidemia. And this is again a table which is showing the risk of developing incident in hypertension, which means to begin with, there is no hypertension, you just have fatty liver disease. But then over a period of time, you tend to develop hypertension, dyslipidemia, diabetes. So thereby, as I said, it's a kind of a bidirectional link that you start with fatty liver and later on you are developing metabolic risk factors. And the other way around is also fine, that you start with metabolic risk factors and then you would tend to develop fatty liver disease. Now, finally, in this part, as I said, that if you have metabolic risk factors, your severity of having fatty liver disease also goes up. And what do we mean by severity? Is more chances of NASH, more chances of having advanced fibrosis, more chances of cirrhosis, more chances of HCC. I think everything goes up. And what is the evidence for that? I have picked up the same meta-analysis which I showed you earlier, the diabetic meta-analysis of around say 80 studies, 50,000 patients with diabetes. And if you look at that, in that particular study, the prevalence of the fatty liver, as I said, was 56%. But if you look at the prevalence of NASH, which is considered as severe form of fatty liver disease, was seen in 37%, which is way ahead of general population, right? And similarly, if you look at the prevalence of advanced fibrosis, which was 17%, again way ahead of general population. So if you have diabetes, metabolic risk factors, your risk of having a severe form of fatty liver disease goes up. And then there are again large number of other studies which have shown, and this is again a table which is showing you that if you start with a fatty liver and you just have say NAFL, which means only fat in the liver with or without minimal inflammation, not amounting to NASH, no fibrosis, over a period of time, who are the patients who are likely to have what we call the progressive NASH, and who are the patients who are likely to develop hepatic fibrosis. And if you look at, these are the predictors or the risk. And if you read, I think there's diabetes, there is obesity, there is, high LDL, hypertension, insulin resistance, hypertension, diabetes, so all metabolic risk factors puts you at a risk of, developing progressive NASH or fibrotic NASH over a period of, time. Again, this is a very beautiful study which was done by Dr. Fasia Kamal's group from Baylor School of Medicine, US. And again, they looked at the risk of having severe liver disease, which I said cirrhosis, and HCC in patients with NAFLD because of metabolic traits or metabolic risk factors. And if you just concentrate here, your risk of having HCC and cirrhosis, and if you look at the risk factors here, if you have diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, maybe 5 times higher risk of having HCC, 2 times higher risk of cirrhosis. And this is true for various other combinations, especially if you are obese, diabetes, and hypertension, 8 times higher risk of HCC and 2 times higher risk of cirrhosis. So I think if you have metabolic risk factors, as I said, your risk of having severe form of fatty liver disease really goes up. Now, why is this happening and how is one contributing to the other, which means how is metabolic risk factors, leading on to fatty liver disease, and how is fatty liver disease leading on to metabolic risk factors? I think again, the time will not permit me to get into details, but I'll just show you one slide to maybe just give you some concepts on this, that when you have fatty liver disease, I think the 3 sources of putting fat in the liver are basically, one is your what we call the adipose tissue, and because of the insulin resistance, what you have is there's increased lipolysis, which means there is increased delivery of free fatty acids from the adipose tissue into the liver. So that's the major source in NAFLD. The second is that you can have some synthesis of fat within the liver, and this is, we call it as de novo lipogenesis. And third is your dietary fat intake, which is not a major source for putting fat in the liver, but then is one of the sources. So if you have, say, start with obesity or metabolic risk factors, and your adipose tissue is inflamed and is full of fat, obviously, and if there is a peripheral insulin resistance in adipose tissue, your risk of having fatty liver disease, as I said, goes up. Now you have developed fatty liver, and in the fatty liver, what happens is the liver fat per se causes insulin resistance in the liver, and that is known as hepatic insulin resistance. So normal function of insulin in the liver is to prevent the glucose production and keep the glucose levels at a normal levels. So there's a normal inhibition of glucose production. This is the normal insulin action. But when there is a hepatic insulin resistance which has occurred secondary to deposition of fat in the liver, this action of insulin is impaired. So which means more of fat is synthesized by the liver, which is put into the circulation, which leads on to hyperglycemia, which leads on to hyperinsulinemia, and that cycles goes on. The beta cells gets exhausted, and ultimately it can lead on to diabetes. So I think this is the kind of bidirectional link which I said. Again, the time really doesn't permit me, but let me go into my last part of my talk, which is, as I said, in addition to the metabolic risk factors, the NAFLD has also been shown to be associated with cardiovascular diseases, chronic kidney diseases, and various kinds of malignancies. So maybe just quickly I'll show you some association between that. When we say cardiovascular disease and NAFLD, I think again, one thing or one message which I like to give to the audience would be that if you are asked that what are the common causes of deaths in a patient with NASH or NAFLD, it is not liver disease. It is nothing but it is cardiovascular disease. And if you are asked what is the second cause of death, it is again not liver disease. It is malignancies. And what is the third common cause is the liver related death, which means that patients with NAFLD are definitely at a higher risk of having cardiovascular disease, malignancies, which could be hepatic malignancy and extrahepatic malignancy. And in the cardiovascular disease, both the structural abnormalities, your risk of atherosclerosis, your risk of coronary artery calcification, your arterial stiffness, aortic wall stenosis, the deposition of fat in the myocardium, epicardium, all these kinds of structural abnormalities have been described, and that has been shown to lead on to various functional abnormalities in the heart, which is leading on to various cardiac arrhythmias, and where the LV dysfunction, especially the diastolic dysfunction, including congestive heart failure. So what is the evidence? Again, there are large number of studies. Again, the time doesn't permit me, but this is one of the largest meta-analysis which I picked up. 16 studies, 34,000 adults, 36%, one third of them having fatty liver disease. And if you look at here, the fatal cardiovascular events and fatal and non-cardiovascular events, and if you look at the diamond, it is towards the NAFLD, which means if you have NAFLD, your risk of having both fatal and non-fatal cardiovascular disease events is much higher than if you do not have fatty liver disease. Chronic kidney disease, again, I have picked up only one meta-analysis. Again, 33 studies, 63,000 participants. And look at this, your risk of, having increased risk of having chronic kidney disease, which is 2 times prevalent risk or the incident risk, which means, and this is, higher in NAFLD. And within NAFLD, if you have NASH, which means higher severe form of fatty liver disease, or if you have advanced fibrosis, your risk of having chronic kidney disease further goes up. And just to look at this, I think we had done this small work 2 years back. We published this, and again we looked at our 100 patients with fatty liver disease, and we looked at their kidney functions by calculating the eGFR and looking at the micro proteinuria and the macro proteinuria in them, and we found that 30% of them actually had evidence of chronic kidney disease based on these 2 measurements. And when we looked at again the risk factors for this, other than the metabolic risk factors like diabetes and all, advanced fibrosis on transient elastography, which means the increased hepatic fibrosis and fatty liver disease was found to be an independent predictor for impaired renal function, even in our patients with fatty liver disease. And again, what is the pathogenesis or the link between cardiovascular and chronic kidney disease? Again, I think this is to sum up that the adipose tissue is inflamed, your liver is inflamed, and all these are leading on to insulin resistance, atherogenic dyslipidemia, inflammation, hypercoagulability, and again putting you at a risk of cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. These are my 2 last slides. As I said, the association with malignancies. So the major association of fatty liver disease is what we call the hepatocellular carcinoma, which we know is the most common primary malignancy of the liver. But in addition, there's a lot of data which has come up where people have now actually shown the association of fatty liver disease with extrahepatic cancers. And this is one study, again I picked up a recent study from Journal of Hepatology, which looked at that the association was highest with colorectal malignancy, which was putting you at a risk maybe 2 times hazard ratio. This was in males. And in females, the most common association was seen with the breast cancer, which was again maybe 2 times higher risk, hazard ratio of 1.92. This is a very recent study, which is in press still, and where we had analyzed, I think, 900 patients with HCC at our center. And around 800 of them, we had all the risk factors and all. And just to tell you, this NASH was responsible in around 18% of our patients with HCC. But then we also had around 100 and two patients, those who were non-cirrhotics, which means so 85% or 90% of most of our patients with HCC in even in this country would have underlying cirrhosis. But then we can do have 10-15% those who do not have cirrhosis. And when we looked at these non-cirrhotics, 45% was hepatitis B and 45% was NASH. So NASH and hepatitis B are two very important causes for non-cirrhotic HCC. The last message I would like to give from this study is that what we looked at the number of patients per year of HCC from 2007 to 2015 over a period of 9 years, and the changing etiology. And what we found was that over the years, there was a definite increase of NASH as an etiology of HCC over this period of 9 years. And in the last years, what we found was that this has gone even as high as 20% of our patients of HCC were NASH related. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me summarize what I said in last 20 minutes or so, that NAFLD is now a multi-system disease, has a lot of extrahepatic associations, and most of these extrahepatic associations are nothing but are the non-communicable diseases. And what I showed you today is basically the evidence for the association of NAFLD with metabolic syndrome and its components, which means diabetes, hypertension, and dyslipidemia. I also showed you that this is a bidirectional relationship, which means that if you have metabolic syndrome, your risk of having fatty liver disease is definitely high. But on the other hand, if you start with fatty liver disease, your long-term risk of developing diabetes and other metabolic components also goes up. So this is the bidirectional link. Metabolic risk factors, I showed you evidence that it increases the severity of fatty liver disease. More of NASH, more of advanced fibrosis, more of cirrhosis, more of HCC if you have metabolic risk factors. The pathogenesis is, probably insulin resistance, which is happening at multiple levels, adipose tissue, skeletal, and at the liver level. And also, I showed you data about the relationship of NAFLD with, cardiovascular events, chronic kidney disease, malignancies, both liver-related malignancies, and also the extrahepatic malignancies. This all actually have, bearing on the management of patients with fatty liver disease. Again, I think that is not the topic which was really assigned to me, and time didn't permit me to get into the details, but we can have discussion on this, that yes, if you have diabetes and NAFLD, how do you manage diabetes? Are anti-diabetic agents good enough in your treating fatty liver disease? How about antihypertensive, anti-dyslipidemic, and so many other issues, your transplant issues? If you have fatty liver disease, if you have diabetes and there's a cirrhotic or an HCC requires transplant, does it have any bearing? So lots of management issues. Again, as I said, time did not permit me, but thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.